Hello and welcome back to the third realm. We'll start at the bench today, where I have a recent arrival in the form of a Märklin 3021, and it is also a mini milestone for the collection. We'll cut to the chase today, so without further ado, we'll dive straight in, give it a once-over, have a look at a few related models, and hopefully run them together with matching stock from the 1980s Märklin catalogues. If you are feeling a bit nostalgic, you have landed in the right place today. Before we set off, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe and alert button before leaving today. Super thanks are also available if you feel the content deserves it. Whatever the option you choose will be much appreciated. Many thanks. Now, on to our topic. So, what have we got here? This is a Märklin 3021, a class 220 of the Deutsche Bundesbahn, which I don't think requires any introduction. If you did need some more information, there is another video with a bit of history on the channel. I have put a link at the top now. This is the 13th and final version of this long-running model. This version was produced between 1985 and 1989. Until 1986, you could have bought this model in a blue-orange box like the one we have here. After that, the packaging changed to a white box. Let's take the locomotive out. We still have instructions. This adds to the originality. The model doesn't look bad. The paint is in very good shape. The markings all look intact, and the chassis is in good order. The model has obviously been used, but there are no obvious defects to whinge about. It took me a while to find one, as these don't come up for sale as frequently as older versions, and even less so in original configuration. It is probably because less of them were made, and also because of the more modern touches applied to this model. So, what makes this model a version 13? Let's bring in version 12, which I presented in the video I mentioned earlier. The main difference is the classification. Version 12 has a pre-1968 number, V200 060, while version 13 features a post-1968 number format, 220043-4. The location of the number on the sides has changed. The number and Deutsche Bundesbahn logos are cast on version 12 and printed on a smooth surface on version 13. Lower down, the inscriptions printed on the chassis have been updated. Here is version 12, and now version 13. Looking at the cabs, on version 12, logos and numbers are cast and painted, and so are the stripes. On version 13, the cast elements have been removed. The numbers, logos and stripes are now applied to a smooth surface. These changes brought the model closer to how the prototype looked in its last few years of service. As it happens, version 13 was released a year after the last units were withdrawn by the Deutsche Bundesbahn. Here's a picture of the prototype taken in Lübeck in 1980. Some units had also been repainted in the 1974 Deutsche Bundesbahn color scheme, like the freshly painted example on this picture, taken at Lübeck station in 1975, as it was waiting to depart for Copenhagen. Some people find the livery somewhat unflattering. I kind of like it. Märklin released a model of this locomotive in 1984 under reference number 3081. We have one here. You have seen this model before on the channel as well, a couple of times. This livery is probably the reason why Märklin went through the trouble of smoothing the surface of the body. The tooling tweaks found on version 13 of the 3021 were first introduced on this model. See, we have a smooth cab here too. And cosmetically, the difference is only the blue-beige livery and the different running numbers and markings on the frame. This model was produced until 1988. Märklin also reused the tooling for a one-year-only special series made for the Swiss market in 1988. It even featured on the cover of the export models brochure for Switzerland that year. It is the Märklin 3184. It represents an AM4/4. Here's a picture of the real one. The SBB bought a few withdrawn BR220s from the Deutsche Bundesbahn in the 1980s. I think they were meant to be used for electrification work and freight. And I have this model in the collection too. Look at that. Beautiful, isn't it? Märklin highlighted certain details in yellow, the handlebars and steps on the sides, and a few elements on the cabs. Incredible what a small amount of paint can achieve. The body is identical, bar a few additions. A few changes were made to the roof. We can see 2 boxes were added over the vents. And we have what might be an antenna, I'm not sure, above one of the cabs. Nicely done. And this is where the mini milestone I mentioned at the beginning comes into play. With the latest arrival, the collection now contains one example of each model of this class available in the Märklin catalogues of the 1980s. The changes made by Märklin also cascaded down to its Primex range, with a few updates to model number 3009, a simplified version of the 3021, culminating with a final limited series in 1989. This one's very sought after, as I believe only 500 units were made. But Primex is off topic as far as the collection is concerned. Well, for now at least. Technically, the German models are identical. I'll open the 3021 I received. Let me make some space. There we go. So, I'll take the body off. This reveals a very familiar arrangement. We have a motor bogie with a large flat collector motor, a mechanical reversing unit, 2 light bulbs, which are both always on. Even the wiring is the same across the 3 German models, with still no color coding. For the Swiss model, however, Märklin added a few things. We have a similar layout with the motor, the mechanical reversing unit and the bulbs at each end, but we now have an electronic pre-reversing unit. The wiring is color-coded and the lights are directional on this model, but still with the German A-shape lighting. Let's check the new arrival quickly. I'll lift the bogie, so it's bogie cover first, then the screws, then I'll pull it out gently, not to break any solder joint. Now I'll dismantle the motor. It doesn't look too bad, but everything needs a small clean. Let's check the tires. This one is loose. Look at how it can turn around the wheel. So they're all the same and will need changing. I'm going to spare you the servicing today. We'll fast forward. There we go, all done. Last thing will be a change of pickup shoe, as this one is worn. And I'm going to keep the old one to refurbish it because it still looks good. Alright, let's do a quick test. And we are operational. Okay, I'll put everything back together. I'll send all locals for a warm-up while I get some rolling stock out. One moment, please. So let's start with the new arrival. I was browsing for some inspiration and I found this picture of service D399 between Copenhagen and Hamburg in 1978. I thought we'd aim for a similar look using tinplate coaches. I have put all details about the compositions used in this video in the description down below. This is a heavy train. Tinplate coaches cause a lot of drag, and one of the coaches is also fitted with interior lighting, which adds even more drag. Good way to test the performance of the locomotive. The transformer throttle is set at the 100 mark. The load doesn't seem to be a problem for the locomotive. The speed remains even on curves. Beautiful composition, isn't it? Now we are slowing down a bit in this section. That is normal, there is less power here. Now the ramp. There is a slight deceleration, but the locomotive maintains its pace all the way up. Effortless. And we have a small runaway effect downhill, but it is attenuated by the drag caused by the coaches. Well, this locomotive is a top performer. No wonder so many were sold over such a long time. Now I took additional stock out for the remaining locos. Version 12 is pulling an F-train like this Cambrinus service in 1967. Beautiful picture. .3081 is in front of a commuter service with a few Silberlinge, probably the most common use for the class towards the end of its career. .3184 is pulling a bit of freight. You notice that the model is a bit slower than the others. This is normal. The difference is caused by the electronic pre-reversing unit fitted to the model. Right, I'll hand over to the trains for a couple of minutes now. Enjoy! Well, the new arrival didn't disappoint and everything behaved itself, which is not really a surprise with the V200 tooling. These things are simply indestructible. This is the end of the nostalgic interlude. I hope you enjoyed the video, hopefully enough for you to give it a like and maybe subscribe if you haven't already done so, or even send a super thanks my way if you feel the video was worth it. Thanks as ever for all your support, and bye for now.